I never really imagined that one person could change the entire rhythm of my life. Before I met her, college felt like an endless blur of classes, assignments, and trying to prove myself in every possible way. I was loud, always surrounded by people, the type of person who laughed too loudly at small jokes and filled silences with unnecessary chatter. That was me, an extrovert in every sense, someone who hated empty spaces and loneliness. And then there was her. The first time I saw her, it was in a crowded lecture hall during our second semester. I remember scanning the room for a place to sit, coffee in one hand, notebook in the other. She was already there, quietly tucked into a corner desk by the window, her gaze lowered, a strand of hair falling across her face, as she scribbled something in her notebook. There was a softness to her, almost like she was wrapped in a different kind of light than everyone else in the room. It wasn't about her clothes or the way she looked, it was the way she carried herself. Calm. Still. Like the world couldn't shake her no matter how loud it got. I sat next to her without really thinking. Maybe it was fate, maybe it was just the last available seat, but from that day, something began. She looked up briefly, gave me the smallest smile, and then went back to her notes. For someone like me, who thrived on noise and energy, her quietness was both intimidating and magnetic. Over time, we were paired together for lab work and study groups, and I quickly realized how different we truly were. I loved talking, debating, filling every pause with words. She, on the other hand, thrived in silence. She only spoke when she had something meaningful to say, and when she did, people listened. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight, gentle, patient, thoughtful. And yet, despite those differences, we fit together in a way I can't fully explain. Where I was restless, she was steady. Where I was scattered, she was grounded. She didn't judge me for being impulsive or loud, instead, she smiled at my chaos, as though she found comfort in it. Some evenings after class, we would linger on campus, sitting on the stone benches under the trees. I would talk about my day, my dreams, the endless list of things I wanted to do, and she would simply listen. She had this rare gift, she never interrupted, never made me feel like I was too much. Her silences were never cold, they were reassuring, like she was creating space just for me. There was one afternoon I'll never forget. We had been working on a group project in the library, and everyone else had left early. It was just the two of us, the soft hum of the air conditioning, and the faint smell of old books around us. I had been explaining something, my hands waving in every direction as usual, when I noticed she was just looking at me, her head tilted slightly, eyes soft, lips curved into the faintest smile. I froze mid-sentence, suddenly aware of how intently she was listening, how much she was really there with me in that moment. I laughed awkwardly, asking what she was smiling at, and she shook her head and said quietly, "You make everything sound so alive." I didn't know what to say. My cheeks burned, my heart raced, and for a brief second, I wondered if she knew just how much that small sentence meant to me. As months passed, our friendship grew naturally. We studied together before exams, sometimes sitting shoulder to shoulder in crowded coffee shops, with our laptops open, and cups of tea going cold beside us. We would share snacks during lectures, exchange inside jokes through quiet glances, and occasionally text each other late at night about things that didn't matter at all but somehow felt important, because it was her. I began to notice the little details, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the way her laughter always started quietly before spilling out uncontrollably, the way she cared about people in a way that seemed almost otherworldly. She wasn't just kind because it was expected, she was kind because it was who she was. And maybe that was the beginning of it all, the moment when admiration turned into something deeper. At first, I told myself she was just a friend, someone who balanced out my energy with her calm. But the truth was, every time I sat beside her, every time she looked at me with those patient eyes, I felt something stirring inside me, something I couldn't quite name yet. I didn't know then what it would grow into. All I knew was that she had already made my world brighter, just by being in it. The more time I spent with her, the more our friendship wove itself into the fabric of my everyday life. What began as study partners in the back corner of classrooms slowly became something deeper, something I found myself depending on without realizing it. We developed a rhythm, one only the two of us understood. I would rush into class, half out of breath from running across campus, and she'd already be there, her notebook perfectly laid out, pens lined up with quiet precision. She would raise an eyebrow as I collapsed into the chair beside her, my papers spilling everywhere, and without a word she'd help me gather them, a soft laugh slipping out as if she'd expected my chaos all along. Her patience astonished me. I was the kind of person who blurted things out, made jokes at the wrong time, or complained loudly about assignments. She, on the other hand, moved through the world with a gentleness that made people lean closer just to hear her. She wasn't passive, she had opinions, strong ones even, but she never pushed, never made people feel small. Instead, she lifted them, like every conversation with her was an invitation to be better. We started walking home together after late lectures. Our paths overlapped, so it became natural. Those walks became some of my favorite parts of the day. The streets would be quieter by then, the air cooler, and I would talk about everything and nothing, my family, my fears, the books I was reading, the ridiculous things that happened in class. She listened with that same quiet attentiveness, sometimes slipping in a comment that made me laugh so hard I had to stop walking just to catch my breath. It was in those moments I discovered another side of her. She wasn't always serious, she had this subtle, dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. Once, when I teased her for being too quiet, she smirked and said, "Why waste words when yours could fill a library?" I nearly choked on my own laughter, and from that day, I realized she had wit tucked behind her calm exterior. Sometimes, we'd stop at a little cafe on the way back. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small place with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs, but it became ours. We'd order tea or coffee, depending on our moods, and sit by the window, watching people pass by while we worked on assignments. She always ordered chamomile, and I teased her endlessly for her grandmother taste, while she claimed my obsession with strong black coffee explained my restlessness. Those evenings were simple, ordinary even, but they left me with a warmth that lingered long after I went home. It was during one of those cafe evenings that I caught myself staring at her longer than I should have. She was bent over her notes, her brow furrowed, lips pursed in concentration, the soft glow of the lamp above casting a golden outline around her hair. Something fluttered in my chest, sharp and unfamiliar. I shook it off quickly, telling myself it was just admiration, that I was only grateful for her presence. But a small, treacherous part of me knew there was more. Our bond deepened further when exams rolled around. She struggled with dyslexia, and the pressure of our competitive university weighed heavily on her. I saw the way she doubted herself, the way frustration sometimes clouded her usually gentle expression. So, I began helping her in whatever way I could, reading texts aloud, breaking down notes into simpler outlines, quizzing her until she sighed dramatically and begged me to stop. But even in her frustration, she never snapped, never made me feel like I was doing too much. Instead, she would smile afterward and say quietly, "I don't know what I'd do without you." Those words stayed with me longer than they should have. There were small moments too, ones that seemed insignificant, but meant the world to me. Like the time I forgot my umbrella, and it started raining as we left campus. Without hesitation, she pulled me under hers, holding it awkwardly so I wouldn't get wet even if it meant she did. I remember walking home that evening, shoulders pressed together under the small umbrella, the rain tapping softly above us. I laughed about how ridiculous we looked, but inside, I wished that moment could stretch forever. Or the night I had a minor breakdown over an assignment. I had called her, my words tumbling out too fast, my frustration spilling into tears. She didn't try to fix it with advice or lectures. Instead, she came over with snacks, curled up beside me on the couch, and simply stayed. We watched movies until I fell asleep, and when I woke, she had left a little note on the table that said, "You've got this. Don't forget." It was those gestures, small, consistent, filled with quiet care, that made me realize she wasn't just kind, she was extraordinary. And slowly, almost without my permission, admiration blurred into something else. I told myself it was just friendship, that I was overthinking. After all, I had always been someone who felt things deeply, who got carried away in emotions. But when my heart beat faster just because she brushed my arm, or when I caught myself smiling at the memory of her laugh hours later, I knew I was only fooling myself. Still, I buried it. She was my friend, my safe place, and I couldn't risk that. Whatever these feelings were, I convinced myself they would fade with time. But deep down, I knew they wouldn't. That year tested me in ways I never could have imagined. It felt like everything I had been balancing so carefully suddenly toppled over, leaving me raw and fragile in the wreckage. It started with my family. The truth about my father's infidelity came crashing down in a way that couldn't be hidden anymore. One evening, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table, her voice trembling as she told me he had been seeing someone else for months. Their marriage, our family, was ending. I remember sitting there numb, unable to process, while her words echoed in my head like broken glass. The home I thought was safe suddenly felt like a house built on lies. Not long after, the relationship I had been clinging to for stability ended too. My girlfriend at the time left me just weeks before exams. Her reasons were vague, wrapped in soft words meant to sting less. But the message was clear, she didn't see a future with me. I tried to be strong, tried to pretend it didn't matter, but inside I was unraveling. Nights stretched long with sleeplessness, my chest heavy with the weight of everything I had lost all at once. And then came the worst, the night I was followed home by a man whose intentions were anything but safe. It was an experience that left me shaken to my core, my body trembling for hours after, my mind spinning with fear. I managed to escape, but the shadow of it clung to me for weeks, making me flinch at footsteps behind me or voices in the dark. It was too much. Too many cracks in too short a time. But she was there. She was always there. The first night I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably after my father left the house for good, I called her. My voice was shaking, words spilling in fragments, but she didn't hesitate. Within 20 minutes, she was at my door, hair still damp from her evening shower, carrying a bag of snacks and a blanket like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't try to fix it, didn't bombard me with solutions. Instead, she wrapped the blanket around my shoulders, pulled me into her arms, and just held me while I cried. I can still remember the warmth of her chest against my cheek, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, the way her hand stroked my hair slowly until my sobs softened. It wasn't romantic, not in the way movies would make it out to be. It was something deeper, more profound. She carried my pain as if it were her own, and in that moment, I felt like I wasn't completely broken. From then on, she became my anchor. When I couldn't sleep, I would text her at midnight, and she would reply instantly, as if she had been waiting. Sometimes she'd call, her voice low and soothing, telling me it was okay to feel everything I was feeling. Other times, she would just sit in silence on the line with me until my breathing evened out. During exams, when my mind was fogged with heartbreak and anxiety, she studied with me tirelessly. She would nudge me gently when I grew distracted, offer to quiz me, or simply remind me that I was capable, even when I couldn't believe it myself. I started to notice the way she looked at me when I was at my lowest, not with pity, but with unwavering faith, as if she knew I would find my way back. Her kindness felt almost impossible at times. I kept asking myself how someone like her existed in this world, someone so endlessly patient, so gentle in a world that rarely rewarded it. She didn't just listen, she absorbed my pain and gave back comfort. When she hugged me, it wasn't casual, it was grounding, like she was stitching me back together piece by piece. One night, after a particularly hard day, we sat on the balcony outside my apartment, wrapped in blankets. The city lights twinkled below us, but my eyes were swollen from crying. I told her everything, how lost I felt, how broken my family was, how I was scared I wasn't enough for anyone. She didn't interrupt, didn't rush me. When I finally fell silent, she reached over, took my hand, and said softly, "You don't have to be enough for everyone. Just be you. That's already more than enough." I don't think she realized how deeply those words etched into me. In that moment, she wasn't just my friend, she was something else entirely. An anchor, a safe harbor, maybe even a miracle. And that was when I began to see the truth of my feelings. It wasn't just admiration anymore. It wasn't just gratitude. Every moment with her, every laugh, every late-night conversation, every quiet hug, was carving itself into my heart as love. Not a fleeting crush, not confusion, but something deeper, heavier, unshakable. I tried to fight it. I told myself I was projecting, that I was clinging to her kindness because I was vulnerable. But the more I denied it, the more it bloomed. My heart beat differently when she smiled at me. My body leaned closer without permission when she sat beside me. And when she held me, I never wanted to let go. The irony was sharp and cruel. I was falling in love with the one person who had become my lifeline, the one person I couldn't risk losing. And yet, even as the fear of unrequited love loomed, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this love, even if silent, was worth carrying. Because she had given me something no one else ever had, the certainty that I wasn't alone. It happened slowly, quietly, the way the sun slips below the horizon without you realizing how dark the sky has become. For months, I kept telling myself it was admiration, that I was only drawn to her because she was kind and because she had been there for me in ways no one else had. I insisted it was gratitude, nothing more. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. One afternoon, I caught the truth in my own reflection. We had been studying together in the library again, and she had fallen asleep beside me, her head resting lightly on her folded arms. I should have gone back to my notes, but instead, I found myself just watching her. Her lashes brushed softly against her cheek, her breathing was steady, and her lips curved faintly in the kind of unguarded peace only sleep can bring. My chest tightened, not with the comfort of friendship, but with something heavier, something achingly sweet. I loved her. And I was falling for her. That contradiction became my constant companion. My chest ached with every laugh we shared, every touch, every kind word. My longing grew in silence, unspoken and unseen, a love that bloomed in secret corners of my heart where it had no business taking root. I would go home after spending time with her and lie awake replaying moments in my mind, imagining them differently. In my daydreams, her smile lingered for me alone, her hand reached for mine deliberately, her hugs carried something more. But reality always came back, sharp and unyielding. She was my friend, my dearest, closest friend, and nothing more. If I tried to make it more, if I confessed, I risked shattering everything we had. And losing her, even just as a friend, was unthinkable. So I swallowed the words that burned at the back of my throat. I never told her how my heart raced when she looked at me, how her laughter lit something inside me no one else ever had, how every hug felt like home. Instead, I smiled, I laughed, I held her hand when she offered it, and I pretended it was enough. But in the quiet of my own mind, I admitted the truth. I was in love with her. Completely, hopelessly, deeply in love. And she would never be mine. It was a conversation that seemed ordinary at first, one of those late afternoons when we sat together in the cafe with our half-empty mugs and a pile of notes between us. She was telling me about a classmate who had been trying to flirt with her, rolling her eyes as she recounted his awkward attempts at humor. I laughed along, teasing her about how she always attracted attention without even trying, but then she said something that froze me. "He's sweet," she admitted, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, "but I don't think I like him that way. I mean, I do like men, but I'm not really interested in dating right now." The words replayed in my head long after the conversation had moved on. I do like men. So casual. So certain. It was the kind of sentence that settled into my chest like a weight, reminding me of a truth I had been trying desperately to ignore. In the days that followed, little signs I had brushed off before began to shine brighter, harsher. She never once hinted at being curious about women. When friends asked her what kind of person she found attractive, she always described men: tall, kind, funny, a good smile. If someone joked about us being close enough to be a couple, she laughed in that easy way that said, "Don't be ridiculous." And every time I heard her say something that confirmed what I already knew, a small piece of me cracked. I wanted so badly to deny it. I replayed all the moments we had shared, searching for hidden meanings that weren't there. The lingering hugs, the late-night calls, the way she listened so deeply, it all felt like more to me. But to her, it was just friendship. Beautiful, deep, loyal friendship. I started to feel anger, not at her, but at myself. Anger for assuming. For allowing my heart to run away with fantasies I had no right to build. I had mistaken kindness for something it wasn't, and now I was paying the price. One night, the weight of it all came crashing down. I was alone in my room, the glow of my phone screen lighting up my face as I scrolled through our messages. Dozens of conversations, her checking in on me, sending encouragement before exams, silly memes that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. Every word was a reminder of how much she cared for me. And yet, it wasn't the way I wanted. Not the way I had convinced myself it could be. I put the phone down and buried my face in my hands. The tears came hard and fast, unstoppable. I cried for everything: my broken family, my past heartbreaks, and now this love that had nowhere to go. The thought circled in my head like a cruel chant: she'll never love me that way. She'll never love me that way. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to pour everything out, to look her in the eye and say, "I love you. I've loved you for longer than I've admitted, and it's breaking me inside." But each time I imagined it, fear stopped me cold. What if it ruined everything? What if she pulled away, uncomfortable, unsure of how to act around me? The thought of losing her, her presence, her laughter, her steady comfort, was unbearable. So I stayed silent, even as the words screamed inside me. The hardest moments were when I was with her. Like one evening when we were studying in my apartment, books scattered across the table, her hair falling forward as she scribbled notes. I looked up from my laptop and just watched her, the curve of her brow, the focus in her eyes, the soft sound of her pen scratching the page. My heart ached so deeply I thought it might split open right there. In that quiet, I whispered the truth only to myself: "I love you." My lips formed the words without sound, my chest tightening as tears threatened again. She looked up suddenly, catching my gaze, and smiled, the kind of smile that lit her whole face. I forced a smile back, swallowing the lump in my throat, but inside, I was screaming. Because in that moment, the truth was undeniable. She would never look at me the way I looked at her. The realization left me hollow. Nights grew heavier, my thoughts darker. I wrote letters I never sent, confessions I tore up before anyone could see them. I filled journals with pages of feelings, pouring out every ounce of longing, just to keep myself from saying it aloud. Yet, even in the midst of that heartbreak, I couldn't pull away from her. I couldn't stop answering her calls, couldn't stop meeting her after class, couldn't stop letting her hug me when she sensed I was struggling. Each gesture was both a balm and a wound, healing me while reminding me of what I could never have. And so, I lived in the quiet torment of loving someone who could never be mine. The world saw us as best friends, inseparable and loyal, and maybe that was all we ever would be. But inside me, love pulsed like a secret I couldn't bury, no matter how much it hurt. Every time I looked at her, the thought returned, relentless and sharp, she'll never love me that way. And I didn't know if I could survive the weight of it. Hiding my feelings became its own kind of prison. Every time I looked at her, every time she smiled at me, my chest filled with both joy and ache. It was unbearable and beautiful at the same time, a love that made me feel alive, yet demanded silence. Some nights, I would lie awake replaying the day's small, ordinary moments. The way she laughed so hard at a joke I made that she leaned against me for balance. The way she absent-mindedly brushed my hair out of my face when we were cooking together. Tiny, casual gestures to her, yet to me, they were lightning strikes that lit up all the corners of my heart. But as soon as the warmth came, so did the bitter edge. Because I knew those touches, those smiles, were not what I wished they were. To her, it was friendship. Nothing more. To me, it was everything. I became a master at pretending. I laughed when she teased me, hugged her back without hesitation, and smiled through the sharp pangs of longing that pierced me whenever she spoke about men she found attractive. I wanted her happiness, of course I did, but sometimes it felt like tearing myself apart. The conflict inside me was endless. One moment, I'd convince myself to let go, to accept the friendship as it was and treasure it. The next, I'd find myself daydreaming, imagining what it would feel like if she reached for my hand not as a friend, but as someone who loved me back. Those what-if fantasies became my secret refuge. I pictured us walking home at night, her slipping her arm through mine and whispering, "I've always felt this way too." I imagined movie nights ending not with a casual goodnight hug, but with her lips brushing against mine, gentle and sure. In those dreams, she loved me back, and the world finally made sense, but dreams vanish with the morning, and reality always came back colder. To cope, I started writing. Letters, messages, confessions, pages filled with words I couldn't say aloud. "Dear you," I would begin. "I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, you became the center of my heart. I love you in ways I don't know how to hide anymore." Or sometimes it was shorter, rawer. "I wish I could tell you how much your smile saves me every single day. I wish I could hold your hand without fear. I wish you knew." I never sent them. They stayed hidden in my journal, in the drafts of my phone, in the quiet corners of my soul. Writing them felt like screaming into a pillow. No one heard it, but at least the sound existed somewhere. The hardest part was how close we were. She trusted me with secrets she told no one else. When she was upset, she came to me. When she was happy, she wanted me there to celebrate. I was her safe place, her chosen person, and that should have been enough. But each moment of intimacy only deepened the ache, because it was everything but the love I craved. There were times she would fall asleep next to me during late-night study sessions, her head resting on my shoulder, her breathing steady and soft. I would sit perfectly still, afraid to move, my heart racing with a longing so sharp it almost felt like pain. To anyone else, it was innocent. To me, it was the closest I would ever get to the life I wanted. And when she woke, rubbing her eyes and smiling at me sleepily, I smiled back, hiding the truth as always. Silence became my constant companion. I carried my love like a secret flame, both precious and destructive. I couldn't extinguish it, and I couldn't let it burn freely. It lived in the in-between, unsaid, unseen, but always there. Every night, before I closed my eyes, I whispered the words to the dark, "I love you." Just once, softly, like a prayer. And every morning, I woke up knowing I'd never really say it out loud. Because loving her meant protecting her comfort, even if it meant breaking my own heart. It was late in the semester, and the pressure of exams was pressing down on me like a storm. Weeks of sleepless nights and endless notes had left me fragile, my nerves stretched so thin that the slightest thing could shatter me. That night, after a particularly grueling study session, I walked out of the library with her by my side. The sky was heavy with clouds, the air charged as though holding back a downpour. We didn't speak much as we walked. She hummed softly to herself, a tune I didn't recognize, while my mind wrestled with everything I had been keeping inside. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy. Each step I took felt like it was carrying me closer to a decision I wasn't sure I could make. Halfway home, the skies broke open. Rain came suddenly, in sheets, soaking us within seconds. She squealed and grabbed my hand instinctively, pulling me toward the nearest bus stop for shelter. My heart lurched at the contact, her hand warm against mine, even in the cold rain. We huddled together under the narrow roof, dripping wet and laughing breathlessly. Her hair clung to her face, her clothes plastered to her skin, and yet she looked radiant. There was something almost cinematic about it, the rain, the laughter, the closeness. My chest swelled with an ache so sharp I thought I might cry. And then, without warning, the laughter faded. I looked at her, and she was looking back at me. Her eyes held mine, steady and searching, as if she could see through the walls I'd built inside. The world around us blurred, the patter of rain, the headlights of passing cars, the hum of the night, it all faded until it was just her and me. I almost said it. The words trembled on my tongue, begging to be released. I love you. 3 syllables that could unravel everything, 3 syllables that had lived in my heart for so long. My throat tightened, my pulse raced, and for a moment I believed I might actually speak them aloud. But then she smiled, soft, warm, utterly unaware of the storm inside me. She reached out, brushing rain from my cheek with the back of her hand, and said simply, "You're such a good friend. I don't know what I'd do without you." The word, friend, hit me like a stone. It was both everything and not enough. In that instant, I realized what speaking my truth would mean. I could destroy the safety of this bond, the ease of her trust. I could burden her with feelings she had never asked for, feelings she would never return. So I swallowed the words. I forced a laugh, blinked away the tears that threatened to spill, and nodded. "Always," I said. My voice cracked slightly, but she didn't notice. Later, when we finally made it home, she brewed tea for us, sitting cross-legged on my bed, as though nothing monumental had just passed between us. I watched her sip, watched the way her eyes softened with exhaustion, and something inside me shifted. I understood then that my love for her didn't need to be confessed to exist. It lived in the way I cared for her, in the way I stood beside her in every storm, in the quiet sacrifices I made without her ever knowing. My love didn't need to be returned to be real. It hurt, oh, it hurt so much. But beneath the ache, there was a strange kind of peace. For the first time, I saw my love not as a chain binding me, but as a gift I carried. It wasn't about possession or expectation. It was about gratitude, for the warmth she had given me, for the way she had unknowingly healed me, for the fact that I had known a love so pure, even if it was one-sided. That night, as the rain tapped gently against the window and she drifted off to sleep beside me, I whispered the words into the darkness, knowing they would never reach her ears. "I love you." And for once, the silence that followed didn't feel like a prison. It felt like release. In the days that followed that rainy night, something inside me softened. I still loved her, God, I still loved her with a quiet intensity that clung to me in every laugh we shared, every glance she gave, every late-night conversation that carried us past exhaustion into the comfort of each other's presence. But the sharp edge of longing began to dull. The desperation to have her, to claim her love in return, slowly gave way to something gentler. I realized that love wasn't only about being chosen. It wasn't only about romance, or kisses, or confessions. Sometimes love lived in the silent spaces, the way my heart swelled when she succeeded, the way I wanted nothing more than her happiness, even if I wasn't the one who gave it to her. She would never know the storm she had been to me, the earthquake she had unknowingly set off in the deepest parts of my soul. And that was okay. There were moments when the ache resurfaced, when she casually mentioned a boy she liked, or when she dreamed out loud of a wedding that didn't have me in the picture. In those moments, I still felt the sting, the small fracture of a heart that wanted what it couldn't have. But instead of drowning me, the pain began to teach me. I learned that love could be unconditional. That it could exist without demand. That it didn't have to be returned to be real, or valid, or beautiful. She once told me, in one of our endless conversations, that she believed the best people in life were those who left you better than they found you. I don't think she knew, as she said it, that she was describing herself. Because that was what she had done for me, lifted me from heartbreak, carried me through my darkest nights, and left me better, stronger, more open to the world. It would have been easy to let bitterness creep in, to resent her for not loving me back the way I wanted. But when I looked at her, the kindness in her smile, the patience in her voice, the way she always showed up when I needed her most, I couldn't find it in myself to resent her. All I felt was gratitude. So I made a choice. I chose to keep walking beside her, as her friend. To treasure what we had, even if it wasn't what my heart had once longed for. To love her in the way she needed, not in the way I had imagined. And somewhere along the way, I began to discover myself, too. I began to see that the love I carried wasn't wasted, wasn't foolish. It had revealed something about me, that I was capable of deep affection, of loyalty, of giving without expecting in return. That, someday, I could give that same love to someone who would meet it with equal force, someone who would look at me with the same adoration I had once reserved for her. The thought didn't erase the ache entirely, but it opened a window in my heart. A small promise that my story wasn't over. One evening, months later, we sat together in the cafe where we had spent countless hours over the years. She was chattering about her plans for the future, her hands moving animatedly, her eyes bright. I smiled as I listened, my heart swelling not with longing this time, but with something steadier, calmer. I realized then that I would always carry this love with me. It wasn't something I needed to bury or erase. It was a part of me, a chapter of my life that had shaped me into someone braver, softer, more human. And when the day came that I met someone who could love me in return, I would recognize that love. I would know how to cherish it, because she had taught me how to feel it in the first place. As we left the cafe and walked into the cool evening air, she looped her arm through mine, laughing about something small and silly. I laughed too, and for the first time, the sound didn't carry any trace of sorrow. It was light, real, present. I didn't know what the future held, for her, for me, for us. But I knew this, loving her had not been a mistake. It had been a gift. And though it was unreturned, it was enough.